We're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome to the April meeting of the Scottsdale Parent Council. If you would, let's please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. The flag is over here. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, next we have our land acknowledgement. As we gather for this meeting, let us take a moment to reflect on the meaning of place, and in doing so, recognize the various traditional lands on which we do our business today. We wish to acknowledge this land on which this SBC meeting is taking place. For thousands of years, it has been the traditional land of the Hohokam, the Akimel O'odham, and most recently, the Salt River Pima Indian community. Today, this meeting place is still home to the many indigenous people from across Maricopa, and we are grateful to have the opportunity to live and work on this land. Okay, so today's meeting will begin, as we usually do, with a question and answer from Dr. Menzel, and then we're going to hear a presentation from Dr. Michelle Watt on information technology in student learning and safety. And we'll end the meeting with executive board updates, committee updates, and any announcements that reps have. Okay, so if you have not written a question on a card, you can still do so and bring it up, or because it's light attendance, I might let you raise your hand. Okay, chronic absenteeism post-COVID has been in the news a lot lately and seems to be an issue everywhere. How is SUSD doing in terms of attendance? What efforts are there being made to support students who have a lot of absences?
That's a good question, and Scottsdale is experiencing elevated numbers of chronic absenteeism like many other school districts. Our average attendance for the year is 92.35%. That is below pre-COVID levels, which were between 94 and 95%, depending on the year. As we kind of track it over time with our data dashboard, it will hover between 90 and 93%. Some of that is still driven by if you're sick, stay home. Some of it is people just never returned to a normal routine of coming to school regularly. And so what we've tried to do at the cabinet level is focus on the importance of attendance, why it matters, and communicating both with our students and our staff. So when I met with the Student Advisory Board a few months ago, we had a conversation about attendance and some of their theories about why students don't come. And one of our challenges to our staff is we want to create a learning environment where FOMO is real for our kids. You know, we want them to want to be in school because they're afraid of what they're going to miss if they're not there. So our learning environment needs to be so engaging that kids are saying, no, I really can't miss school today because I want to be there to learn what I'm going to learn. The other is recognizing, you know, for our littlest learners, oftentimes parents might, you know, want to go on a trip, or they might want to do something else, or the kid doesn't feel well, not demonstrably sick, but, you know, borderline, and so we stay home. It's, you know, it's kindergarten. What could they possibly miss? But over time, I think people don't realize how much school a student misses. And so chronic absenteeism, missing 10% of the school year, 18 days, you know, if you miss 2 days a month, you're already there. And so if you've missed a week for a family vacation and then you get sick and then, you know, you have some long weekends or whatever, it doesn't take a long time to get there. So we're working on not only this year because it's at the end of the year, but going into next year, thinking about how do we create video messaging and other reinforcements for our students. For our elementary kids, it's really more about messaging to parents than it is to the students. I mean, the parents are the ones who get the kids to school, so that's the target message. For middle school and high school, we want to really talk about the learning environment and how we reiterate the importance of good patterns of attendance. It's difficult to make up missed work, and that leads to frustration, often leads to impact on grades. And so, you know, understanding the consequence of not being there and understanding the importance of beyond school. Do employers just let you come and go at will? You know, if you miss too much work, you ultimately don't have a job. So helping people understand that the patterns of behavior that you set early impact future life opportunities as well.
Why did the Supplemental Review Materials Committee get shut down?
So for some people who have watched a couple of our board meetings, there were questions about whether or not board members could serve on superintendent committees. The Supplemental Material Review Committee is a superintendent's committee. There are several of them, and I provided for the governing board a list of all those committees as requested. In reviewing those committees and looking at what's required and not required by statute and where we are in the process, some of the things that had happened most recently with the Supplemental Review Committee wasn't really related to supplemental review. They kind of veered off focus. And because it's not required by statute, I made the decision to eliminate it. The governing board has the ability to establish committees on its own under board policy BDE. And so if they want to do that, they can. On an annual basis, we bring supplemental materials to the governing board for their approval. And that's per Arizona statute. It happens every year. If there are other questions and concerns, there's an opportunity for us to be able to review that. But we decided that given the other dynamics that were at play, that committee didn't need to continue for the balance of this year.
What is SUSD in focus? What is the goal, and who can participate?
So SUSD in focus, and Christine would probably do a far more robust job of telling it, but essentially, we were at the National Public School Relation Association conference and listened to another school district that had done something similar, and it was in Alabama, but it was essentially a deep dive into the operations of the school district designed to help build an understanding across our community. So individuals who are invited to participate are parents, nonprofit organizations, business leaders, other community leaders, to help them understand the complexity of an enterprise the size of Scottsdale Unified School District. Even for new governing board members, and even some that have been on for a while, it's a complex operation. And so the intent of SUSD in Focus is to spend 2 hours a month doing a deep dive into various aspects of our operation, hearing from the leaders of different departments, understanding what state and federal requirements impact what we can and can't do. Some people make assumptions about things that you should be able to do, and it might be true in private sector, but not true with respect to the rules that we have to operate under as a public school system in the state of Arizona. So SUSD in Focus is designed to help build that understanding across our community so that when misinformation is circulating, we have other people who can say, no, that's not quite accurate. Here's what's required. This is what we learned in the SUSD in Focus opportunity. We've tie-barred that to opportunities to do tours of schools in our 5 learning communities and also other parts of our facility. Because if you've only experienced an elementary school, but you haven't visited all of the 5 learning communities, you only have a snapshot of what the district is. So we have the In Focus meeting scheduled for 2 hours on a Wednesday night, followed by on a Thursday, a tour of an elementary, middle, and high school in each of our 5 learning communities over the course of the year when we're doing In Focus. Christine, anything you want to add to that?
Does anyone else have any questions? No? So I'll end with a softball. What are you most looking forward to for the rest of the school year?
Well, the highlight of the rest of this school year would be graduation on May 24th. That's always, what I don't like about it is we have our graduations on the same day, which means I can only go to 1 and not 5. But watching our students walk across the stage, celebrate their success and their careers here, that's a highlight. This Friday, the Charo's 36th annual education banquet is happening, so we get to celebrate our 30 Teachers of the Year, for the first time a classified staff member being recognized, as well as the student scholarship recipients. That's always fun. And then there are any number of honors assemblies and celebrations during the month of May that just are good reflections on everything that our students and staff have been through. It's like running a marathon, and we're getting close to crossing that finish line. Just as the temperatures go up, the school year is going to come to a close, and the timing coincides nicely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so our featured guest tonight is Dr. Michelle Watt. We're going to hear about information technology and learning and safety.
Thank you for the invitation and opportunity to come and share. I love talking about technology and learning and the amazing work of the team that I feel fortunate to be a part of. So this is the conclusion of my second year in this position, leading the IT department in Scottsdale. And I'd like to introduce myself as a recovering kindergarten teacher. Those stress streams that reoccur year after year, mine are still about getting everyone on the rug for story time. And then the principal walks in with people who want to, tour the room or something. And fixing firewalls and such are much less stressful. But so I really do have that perspective of understanding the rewarding nature of being a facilitator in an engaging learning environment, but also the challenges with that. And then after teaching kindergarten, went into IT as an IT support professional in both K-12 systems and higher ed. And somewhere along my journey, I had a leader who introduced me to the national organization called the Consortium for School Networking. That's a professional organization for people like me who are leaders in K-12 systems. And they even came out with a certification called Certified Education Technology Leader. So that's what CETL stands for, and I was the first CETL in Arizona several years ago. I've had it long enough to renew my certification, and now there are more of us, and it is something that is becoming something that when you are looking for a leader for IT or educational technology in a school district, that is an endorsement that that person has experience and knowledge in the areas of education, information technology, and leadership. Those are the three pillars of that. So love to share that, because when I found it, I was like, that's me. I felt like a unicorn, and then I found there's all these other people like me. So tonight, I'll be talking about student technology, school safety, and how technology supports school safety, and a preview of some upcoming things that will be happening for next school year. And I will confess that I used generative AI to make sure I would be covering all of the topics that might be of interest to you tonight. Finishing up this presentation during the board meeting last night, I used my Bing app that has ChatGPT in the background to say, what do parents want to know about how information technology supports safety in a K-12 school system? And got a whole list of things. And then I went through the list and said, yes, okay, I can talk about that. And so a great way to save my brain and save some time. So I hope it's helpful and comprehensive, and look forward to your questions. So with student technology, just first want to talk about our student devices. We have standardized on Chromebooks for K-8 students and Windows devices for high school students. Just this year, we completed a review of an alternate Windows device for high school. So next week, our 9th, 10th, and 11th grade students at Desert Mountain will be trading in their Surface Gos to get Dell Windows laptops. The student advisory board members that I was just talking to today were like, okay, so is the keyboard still going to be detached? Or, and I said, no, it'll be an actual laptop, and they were happy to hear that. We also do support bring your own device on our network. And that is not something that every school district chooses to do. It does require additional, an additional configuration to safely support that on our network, but we did make that choice to provide some options and choice for students, and because we have an expectation that if you're bringing any device to school, it should be connected to our network so that the filters are in place and it's being protected that way. We also, I love to share at any opportunity that the devices we look for and purchase are not consumer grade products. So they're not the same device you're going to see in Best Buy or those types of things. We purchase along the enterprise grade lines because we know that these need to stand up to a lot. Traveling to and from school, we look to get 4 years of use out of a device before it's refreshed. And so we know they need to withstand a lot. So it's a big operation to support the 21,000 student devices that we have across SUSD, and I'm really grateful for support from our community with the recent passage of the district additional assistance override, because honestly, without those additional capital funds, I don't know how we would support these essential, they've become essential learning devices in our classrooms for teachers and students. So the other thing I want to make sure you know about the student devices is the way they access the internet. So we have two filters. One of them is our network firewall. So when either an SUSD device or a personal device that has been brought to school and placed on the SUSD network accesses the internet, all of that traffic from every building goes back to the warehouse where our data center is and then accesses the internet through our actual firewall appliance. And so we have filters in place on there to allow certain certain categories of content through and not allow other categories of content. That would not take effect if a student had brought their own device and was using their own cell signal, or even using a laptop with using their personal device as a hotspot. So that's a practice that is not following the spirit or the guidance of the code of conduct. And one thing that we've been asked to work on this year is to update the language in the code of conduct to make it more explicit that that's not okay, that we should be traveling through the SUSD filters when at school, even with personal devices. The other filter is on every SUSD student device as a client on that device. That's why when students take their SUSD device home or to Starbucks or wherever and connect to an internet connection, they're still filtered. So they still have those same settings in place where certain topics are not going to be allowed through that filtered connection. Our product that we use for that client-based filter is called Lightspeed, and right now we have kind of a test going on of a parent portal feature for Lightspeed. So the feature allows for parents to get a weekly email of the sites that the student has been visiting. If a parent sets up an account with it, then you can turn internet access off on the device while it's not at school. And that is a feature that some parents have asked for. So as folks have reached out and said, hey, we want more control over this school device when it's at home, we've asked them to enroll in the program and try it out and give us feedback. So we're still working to collect feedback about that. If you're interested, always people can reach out to me directly, but also our help desk can help parents get set up on that. I don't know if it's something that we would enroll folks in mass. I mean, we can use the data from our student information system to do that, but I don't know how, I've gotten a little bit of feedback pro and con to it. For some folks, it doesn't have the granularity of control that they're looking for. So still trying to get some feedback about that feature. It's no additional cost. It's just a feature of our filter. And then I also wanted to mention that we have a pretty involved process for reviewing and approving or blocking websites and online software resources at the request of teachers. We have a group where IT and teaching and learning collaborate. They meet once a week and they go through all the requests that have come through. And sometimes it's a request for, a specific YouTube video that is a valuable educational resource, but somehow in a classification, actually the general classification is one that's blocked because we don't know, general's pretty broad, but there could be something of educational value in the general category, so we can yank that out and allow access to it through the filters. We also have the ability now to restrict where students use their Microsoft or their Google login to access software. Up until about a year ago, Google didn't give us that ability, and so the downside is that now if a teacher finds what looks like an amazing resource that they want to use in the classroom, they can't just have students log into it with their Google login, but that is a useful way to remind people that when our students are creating accounts somewhere, they're sharing data, and we take data privacy and the security of student data very seriously. So we're able to review the use of that resource. Our teaching and learning folks can look at it and see, is this a tool that we think brings value to the classroom? Would we rather direct the teacher to this other tool that we already support that does similar or the same things? Or if we are going to pursue allowing access to that tool, then we reach out to the vendor and work on securing a data privacy agreement with them. We're actually one of the founding members of the Arizona Student Data Privacy Alliance. Mesa and a couple of other districts started that, but the benefit is that all of us have that interest in securing student data and are using a lot of the same resources. So if we can all go to a vendor and say, look, we have a problem with what you say in your terms of service, then they're more likely to listen to us than if it's just one district. And when I meet with students, I often get questions about the filter, so used to talking a lot about that approval process. All right. Oh, and then something else I want to make sure that you're aware of, on our external facing website, which you can find if you navigate to departments and then information technology, we've created a student help center with the idea that a lot of the information students need to use their learning device, they get in the classroom from their teachers. But there may be something where you're at home trying to help them and they can't get into this thing called Clever, and you're like, well, I don't know how to get into Clever. Didn't your teacher show you? So we have some really basic instructions in our student help center about some of those things that they may encounter at home. Would always welcome any feedback as to what else might be useful there. And in fact, one of our strategic action teams is trying to pull together information about the food service application and the parent view application and all these other things that aren't necessarily under the domain of technology, but for you, it's just another piece of technology that you're using to access in SUSD, and so putting all that in one place to make it a little bit easier. But the other thing I wanted to be sure to note here is that we don't currently have a policy in place that requires students to change their password at a certain age or grade level. We have been looking into that and considering it, but it hasn't been well known in the past that students can change their password to something private. And unfortunately, we put a lot of technical things in place to help students to not be able to make bad choices, but there's also needs to be a balance of just reminding students how to make good choices with the use of technology. And unfortunately, sometimes students will access each other's account, even though that's a violation of the code of conduct. So I always want to share with parents that there is a way for students to change their password to something private. We have the steps listed in our Student Help Center and work to share that with teachers. It's the hard thing about when do we enforce that is it should be enforced when it's developmentally appropriate, and that might vary by student. So I've seen some of that behavior start in 4th, 5th, or 6th grade, and that's definitely an age when they can remember a private password. So just want to share that capability is there. All right, school safety. So before we talk about this, the information technology department really, all we do is help other people do their jobs better. So a lot of the things that I share or work on, I'm partnering with other departments in our school district, especially safety. We have a director of safety who joined us this year, Josh Friedman. He's amazing. I love partnering with him. And so some of these topics he is more of an expert in than I am, but it is one of those places where our roles really come together. Same with our facilities folks. Some of these topics really have to do with what's happening on our facilities. So the support of the technology behind school safety is not just the IT department. It really is a group collaborative effort. So one of the things we have in place are access control systems. And those are the badges that that staff can swipe at a door in order to have that door open without using a key. Our staff can remotely lock or unlock those doors that are controlled with an access badge system. Also, that can be happening with the push of a button. So in a lockdown type situation, the front door of a school can be secured instantly by pushing a button, and then those access control locks are locked, and so the doors aren't able to open with or without a badge. We are working on expanding the implementation of that. So part of the budget, the capital budget that was presented at the governing board last night did have approval for some access control system upgrades at, I think it's some of our high schools. They don't look like that. I thought I'll find pictures that are obviously not of this item. Same with our intercom systems. So we have intercom systems that we support in all of the schools. We just was that last year? Finished upgrading all of the systems so that the oldest version of our intercom systems are no longer in place, and we have similar systems throughout. So they're much easier to support because we only have to maintain the expertise in that one type of system. We were also able then to get rid of some of the older equipment that tended to have some extra errors. But part of what I want to mention about the intercom systems is that we have built-in redundancy. So if there's a situation where the intercom system, for whatever reason, is down and an announcement needs to be made throughout the school for a safety issue, the backup system is the phones. So there's a phone in every classroom, and there's a code that you can press on the phones in order to speak through the speaker of the phone and still be able to make an announcement in every classroom. And we've done a pretty good job here creating a culture of don't move your phone because our phones are programmed so that if 911 is called, the location that 911 is called from is known based on where the phone is. It's tricky once you switch to those phones that communicate over IP, where you just plug it into a network port. You can kind of plug it into any active network port and it will work. So it can be a battle to overcome the culture of, I'm a teacher, I'm moving down the hall, I'll just take my phone with me. And we've done a really good job here of overcoming that culture. Attaching them to the wall definitely helps, but people seem to know now that their extension can travel with them, the phone doesn't need to. And cameras. So we have cameras at every school. We, in the budget for next year, we did request money to be able to expand and respond to some unique needs of, hey, we actually need some cameras over here, over there. Also, our team's been working with the director of security to look for a system where we can put a few cameras in place for a temporary solution. So, when we install a camera, we have to run a network cable and make sure that power can reach that area. And sometimes that's a pretty long run, too, for the data to travel. So if we have a situation where just for a period of time we need to have eyes on a spot, we can implement these more mobile cameras that use the cellular network to be able to transmit data. And so we're putting that solution in place as well to work as needed. One of the great things about our camera system is that it took a little while, but we pursued an intergovernmental agreement with the Scottsdale Police Station because they have an operations center where if there's something going down, they have folks who can have their eyes on it and be talking with the people out in the field to give them information. So by having access to our cameras in an emergency, they can actually see in our school hallways and at our school front doors to know what's happening. That's not something that is broadly in place. So we've gotten a lot of questions from superintendents and IT departments across the valley about how did you make that work? And we really were concerned about again, student and family privacy in putting that agreement in place. So it spells out that there are certain quarterly trainings that they can do to make sure that that equipment still works, that they can get into it. They'll notify us in advance. Otherwise, it needs to be a school emergency before they activate their access to that system and log into it. So we got to practice that during the Kokopah safety incident. You're shaking your head like you know you heard about this? Oh, yeah. Yeah. And they didn't get all the way through the emergency activity because the cameras were so good, they stopped the bad guy early. Like, what a great problem to have. So, yes. As a question about if the footage from the cameras has been subpoenaed or requested to law enforcement.
Yes.
So we do have experience in where that can or cannot be released and under which conditions, because if there's in supporting parents need to see what's happening with their student, we also need to protect privacy of other students. So our camera administrators are very familiar with the requirements and restrictions around that. And if we ever have any questions about a specific use situation, because unique things come up all the time, right? Then we do get our legal counsel involved. So we're not just handing out the video to whoever asks. Yeah. So, another follow-up question about that?
Do they record audio as well as video?
I don't believe that all of them do. I'm looking at my experts in the other room. No, they don't. Thank you. And in fact, the length of time you can keep it, the granularity of the image, that's all designed based on the storage capacity that you have. So our director of safety and security would like to have more granularity, be able to store video for longer. So we did put in a budget request to upgrade those servers for next year. It's a pretty expensive proposal. So it was not included in the capital proposal that went to the board last night. We may be able to, towards the end of next year, if we're finding that funds went differently than we thought, maybe we can start that project. But that's something on our radar, but not yet immediately. So thank you for the questions. I think I'm getting, I remember, okay. So coming soon, this is the commercial for what we're digging into now and hope to we'll be rolling out next year. There's a lot. So one of the items is a new parent communication platform called Parent Square. Is anyone at Copper Ridge or Saguaro? Okay, those are the two schools that started using it this year because we knew we needed to learn a lot about how to implement this solution before we went district-wide with it, and to make the process smoother for all the other schools. It's a big change. This one platform is replacing our InTouch auto dialer that does the absence notifications or phone calls from principals, that kind of thing. It's replacing Remind, the solution that we used so that we can abide with the State Board of Education guidance and not have students and teachers texting each other directly from their personal cell phones. But it does support two-way communication that's not email, it's more instant direct message through an app. But it also has features where the notifications that come from the school, if you download the app and log into the app, it's kind of like a Facebook feed where you can see all the scrolling announcements that have come your way from whatever club or classroom or principal that has sent a message out. It also has some of those features that I think we're familiar with through like Sign Up Genius or I don't know if any of you have signed like a paper permission slip and sent it back to school lately. We're really looking forward to moving away from that. So permission slips and things can also be done through the Parent Square platform. I just loved when Christine and I had been looking, our director of communications, at a lot of different platforms to see what else was out there that we knew we wanted to make a change. And when we found this one where they're saying, think about the parent perspective, where for this class I'm going to Bloom's, and for this class Dojo, and this one's sending me constant contact emails. That's not a great user experience. So this platform was created by parents who said, no, we should be able to have all of that communication in one spot, so that it's hard enough to get all of the information that you need to in a timely manner. So we're really excited about that. Also, student ID badges with RFID, that's radio frequency ID. Our transportation system is updating some equipment on their buses to where with an RFID badge, when a student gets on the bus and they wave it by the scanner, then it will register that that student's on the bus. And so a parent with that app, with the app for this software can see where the bus is going with their child on it. And so you don't have to walk out to the bus stop until you know that they're about to arrive. So that'll be nice as it gets warmer and in the fall when it's, I couldn't get the word fall because it doesn't feel like fall when we start school again. So that's the main impetus for that. But it also satisfies this desire that our Director of Safety and Security has had for our students to have badges day one. At our K-8 schools, it's often the photographer who supports with student badges, and so that can happen anytime during the fall. But with this badge solution, students will receive a badge from day one. If they lose it or if a new student comes, then we can scan and create a badge for them there at the school, and it will have their student ID barcode on it, so we can scan it at lunch and those kinds of things, or in the library. But because they are RFID cards, in the future there may be other proximity type solutions that we can take advantage of, like that bus scenario. Are there plans to have kids scan onto campus? Not in the immediate future. It opens the door for us to explore other options, though. So, and I will say we just piloted and then implemented at all of our high schools a feature of our student information system where a tardy student can scan the barcode on their ID badge and then go straight to class. So it's really slow, it's really sped up the process for tardy students getting to class. Now, if they're past that 10-minute mark and it's an absence, that takes longer, but I guess it's prevented more students from getting past that 10 minutes because they can get through so fast. I think even some of our security guards, since they have mobile phones, are now able to start scanning at the gate so students can go straight to class. So that's been a huge success, but that's just with the barcode. Upgraded transportation and school radios. So something else that was learned during the Kokopah safety incident were the limitations of some of our radios. And we have known that our bus radio system couldn't really communicate with the schools. They'd have to go through dispatch and back. So the new system will allow transportation folks on the bus to communicate directly with school personnel on their radios. And also they will take advantage of both a cellular network and the Wi-Fi network. So if we have spots in our school where cellular reception isn't as great, then these radios will be able to communicate over our Wi-Fi system. So that is a big chunk that was supported in the capital budget that was shared with the governing board last night. Visitor check-in kiosks and a volunteer management software, those kind of go together. We did we're in the process of finishing up an RFP for a solution that would link those two things. So the volunteer management, what we put in our scope of work is that we'd like to be able to have parent volunteers apply in one centralized place and be able to kind of see the status of their application as it goes through and get some centralized communications around that. It's been a big burden on our HR system, some of the work they have to do to manage and approve volunteers, and also it's been a pain point for parents to have to go through that system. So looking for something to make that easier for everyone. And visitor check-in kiosks would really be that solution that instead of signing a paper when you come to visit, when anyone comes to visit campus, it's actually scanning an ID and giving a sticker. So not only, are Director of Communications is excited about the ability to track some of the volunteer hours that we have with partners because some of our strategic plan goals are around enhancing partnerships. But also, every time that ID is scanned, there is a background check, not a background check, sex offender registry check that happens. So quickly we can check and see if there is something of concern about that individual coming onto campus, and then not let them in if there are concerns. And then the last item is an employee intranet and updated website. We have a perfect storm happening with some of our systems becoming obsolete. Internally, we don't really have an intranet. We have a file share, and we have a portal with links to applications in it. But there's a lot of context and internal communication and climate setting that's kind of missing without an intranet. So we've been kind of on the lookout for what can we build internally to support information sharing, create a culture that brings us a little bit more together through the digital resources we're accessing internally. We just learned in January of 2023 that in January of 2024, the product we're using for that portal is being discontinued. So we have to find an employee intranet now. At the same time, our external website was bought out. It's currently, the product is made by Blackboard. You probably know that name for LMSs, learning management systems, but they do also produce websites, and our website is a Blackboard product, but that's being discontinued because another company bought them out. So we're not just changing the website because we love extra work, but because we have to. It is a great time to redesign, and that's probably why hopefully you all gave some feedback in the survey that went out about the website and the pros and cons of what we have now so that we can build it even better. But that employee intranet will be released before January of 2024, and then the external website hopefully within the 6 months after that. So, all right, so those are the coming soon highlights that I wanted to share, and I have no idea how much time I have or have taken, but eager to have questions.
So if we can ask questions through the microphone, because otherwise the live stream can't hear them.
Hi there. So my son is in elementary school, and this is actually a question that another parent asked me if I would ask you. She wants to know what new parental controls will be on Chromebooks next year, and based on what you were saying, it sounds like there's some kind of test going on right now, but that's not going to be across the board, a broad thing. So her feeling is that the filter right now is not enough. So I just wanted to get your response to that and find out if there's anything else in the works that would actually be available to everybody next year.
Appreciate that feedback. I hear both things, that the filter is not enough and that it is too much. So yes, please share with your friend that we do currently have a feature that is included in our parent portal. They can reach out to the help desk if they'd like to enroll in that and give us feedback on it. That will help inform our decision of how broadly we want to roll this out. And again, it is limited in the features. Parents will be able to see all the places that their students visited and be able to turn off internet access on the device when it's at home.
On the buses with the cameras and stuff that way, how proactive are we in checking on incidences and stuff that way? I know buses can get pretty rowdy. Is it just up to the driver to report stuff, or is there certain checks that are going on? Is it a live feed? How does that work?
That's a really good question. It's been interesting over time to see how cameras in schools have evolved. In another organization that I was in years ago, there was a real reluctance to install more cameras because the thought was, if someone's not watching it, then what liability are we introducing by putting it in there? What we've actually found, though, is that it is incredibly useful for issues or incidents that come up and being able to get to exactly what happened and make the right decisions afterwards. So I would say it's mostly in a reactive context, and maybe reactive means there's a certain situation that a closer eye needs to be kept on, then they'd be available for that too.
Pre-COVID, did everybody have laptops, or is that just everybody gets one now?
Great question.
Because our kids are 5th and 3rd, to give you some background, and it's a little early, but yeah, that's my question: pre-COVID versus now.
Yeah, thank you. So I remember being a kindergarten teacher when they rolled out this keypad that my students were going to have to punch their number in a keypad for their lunch. And at first I was livid. I was like, I hardly get any lunch as it is. I have to stay in the cafeteria while I know the 5 that are going to really struggle put in their number for lunch. But I realized that I'm spending a lot of time in the classroom to get them to understand, to know numbers. So this was a really great real world opportunity for that. And it's been interesting to watch the evolution of the kinds of things that our students have access to at a really young age since then. I think some school districts go through years of planning and thought and budgeting around, can we be one-to-one and can we sustain one-to-one with having one device for every student before they make that jump into it. We did not do that. Ours was very reactive. It was, hey, everyone needs a device. Let's get them out there now. So we really, so the ability to have them means that there are a lot of additional options in the classroom for learning. And I wouldn't want to not have them. But we definitely work with teachers and principals to make sure that the access matches the learning expectation. There's a lot of talk nationally about the homework divide or the digital divide, and the challenges when if a device is available and it's only kept at home, but there's an expectation for learning when you're outside of school, how that sets some students at a disadvantage. And we don't always know which students those might be, because it may even be that, yes, there's technology at home, but there's 5 kids and 2 adults. And so when is this student going to get access to that technology for whatever learning? So it becomes an equity issue. So that we do have some schools, our traditional school keeps devices at school, I think K4. Some other schools have decided to leave the device at school, K1, or I think there's one that where the kindergartners actually leave their device at home and it is used for certain purposes at home. So we really want to provide that flexibility so that where the device is matches the learning expectation and we're not leaving students behind.
That's a great answer, but pre-COVID, who had laptops?
I can answer that.
Okay. Sure. I was just wondering.
I'm a classroom teacher. I teach middle school math. And before COVID, we had computer labs. And you signed up for the computer lab and you went and visited the computer lab. And you maybe had 2 or 3 classrooms that had maybe 32 computers. Well, no one had a laptop to bring home.
Right.
No. But then I was going to say about 2015, they started buying rolling laptop carts. So you could have a mobile computer lab. So you wouldn't have to take your kid 10 minutes to get to the computer lab, 10 minutes shut down early to come back to your classroom. You're only spending 15 or 20 minutes in the computer lab. So now you can have a cart in your room, and if the activity needed a computer, you could do that. Then we were building up to have a cart per classroom, and COVID happened. So we kind of built in that we were almost there, basically.
You said middle school?
I teach middle school.
Okay.
So is that a...
So I appreciate you jumping in because this is my 2nd year here. So I was not here pre-COVID. But yes, there was a critical mass of devices in schools already that had to just then be supplemented so that every student had one when COVID happened. And since then, what we've been working on is that refresh plan so that each device shouldn't have to be used for longer than 4 years.
But that was also happening in elementary.
Yeah, we had cards for a lot of the classrooms, and then it was up down.
If I may I add a little something? Thank you for the question and thank you for jumping in. I want to just give you a little bit of context. So there was a rollout planned, a deliberate rollout plan to phase in to get to one-to-one in Scottsdale Unified. That was accelerated because of the pandemic. So that's why the carts were starting to show up. That was starting to be, bring the computers to the students, have one-to-one. They may not be coming home, but then everything kind of changed. And the kids that were home by either by choice or for health reasons needed a means to be educated. And so that was why the acceleration to one-to-one happened in a way that wasn't intentionally planned, but it was planned to go to one-to-one in Scottsdale Unified. But it was just going to do a little slow because it's expensive to do something like that. So it was more for budget reasons. So, and Dr. Watt has been outstanding, but she has only been here a little less than 2 years, or yeah. Anyway, she's done a fantastic job.
Thank you. Yeah, and the change then with either having a cart in every classroom or being able to take a device home is that using technology changes from an event to just how we do learning. So whether it's, every day after whatever the math lesson is, you do some math practice on the device, or, oh my gosh, I have this great idea and my friends and I want to do a presentation for the principal about it. Let's get our devices. You can capitalize on those opportunities as opposed to, is it our turn with the cart this afternoon? So, anything else?
Can you tell us more about Foursquare and how it's done in the 2 schools that you're using it and how many parents are using it regularly?
Yeah, Parent Square is, one of the things we have learned is how change is a challenge, right? Some of the teachers have jumped into it and been using it more than others. I talked to one student just today who's at one of the schools currently using it, and I said, have you used Student Square? Because there is an app for high school students called Student Square, and he's like, no, I haven't. My teachers aren't there yet. So that has helped us know that we need to give people time to make that transition. There are some things that they won't get the time to make the transition. This year, our 2 schools that are trying it out have still had their attendance calls going through In Touch. That's changing in the next couple of weeks. All of our other schools, attendance calls are going to go through there from the beginning. We currently have Remind as an option for that 2-way communication, like between a coach and a cross-country runner who's a mile away. But that's going to go away because we're not paying for that service anymore when we have Parent Square for that purpose. So in some ways, there'll be other components that will require them to make the shift, but also it's helping us to see, okay, we need to look over time and support people in making that change. We still see a Parent Square post with a link to Sign Up Genius. When you can actually have your volunteers sign up in Parent Square, or a link to a PDF to print for a permission slip. So there's also a learning curve. Like we know what kinds of training needs to come behind and support it. Hopefully that's helpful. We have some principals who reached out and said, can I start this semester too? So that's a good thing to hear, but it'll be next year for them.
Can I say something from a staff perspective though? So just FYI. I think one of my principal was one that said, let's sign up for it early, but it came right after your don't sign up for anything phishing scam emails. Like, watch out, there's phishing scams. So a bunch of us just didn't do it because we were like, oh, this is a phishing scam. So,
Oh
might
my
want
gosh.
to time those a little bit differently.
That is such a battle. I tell you, I'm surprised how much in this role I focus on communication. But yeah, it's helping people know what is legitimately from us and what isn't, because we do simulated phishing to help raise the knowledge and expertise of our staff members. I feel like I'm doing a public service because I'm protecting them in their personal life too, if they can learn something about that. But then we also do receive malicious emails. And it's terrible when we have to cut off someone's network access and shut down their ability to email or access their account for a few days while we we clean up a mess. I mean, they have a job to do, and you really can't do a lot of the jobs in our district without access to technology. So trying to protect people from that but helping them know what to access is definitely a challenge. I'm really looking forward to our intranet as a helpful solution for that, so that if I get an email I'm not sure about, I can go there and look for the real information and see if I should trust that or not.
I know you mentioned that you used AI to help you, come up with topics for this, and I'm just curious, I don't even know if this falls under IT exactly, but like, has the district had any discussions about AI and, what that means for students and using generative AI? Or is there going to be a policy on that, or, are you involved in any discussions around that?
I used generative AI to ask what the outcomes for a work group studying generative AI in a K-12 public school district should be. And there were great answers with sources, very aligned to what we were talking about. But recently, I mentioned COSN earlier, the professional organization to support folks like me. And their conference this year had a ton of information about generative AI. They've always been kind of talking about it, but it hasn't exploded until recently. And now it just feels like it's everywhere and everyone's paying more attention. So one of the things that we are cautious about is looking at the privacy ramifications. Some of these technologies that aren't designed for use in K-12 may not yet have privacy policies that support use in K-12. So that's something that we're still looking into. But the other side of it is that this is a tool that can make our teachers' jobs easier. I mean, can you imagine if you could have generative AI help you find 75 unique ways to say good job on your essay? So looking for those ways for it to help our staff in their jobs. I think then also our teachers are they know the science and art of teaching. And so in seeing how this might help them in their job and the thinking and work they still have to do as a professional will help them see how to guide students through using it to prepare for how it's going to be in their workplace. On the other side of it, though, we do have learning tools that more and more have AI and machine learning capabilities in the background. I mean, machine learning is what really controls our web filter and the categorizations behind it. There's a learning resource at one of our K-5 schools that Dr. Dodds-Karen was telling me about, where it listens to a student reading out loud, an early reader, and gives them feedback about their pronunciation and the words that they've said, just as if they were, not just as if, but can take on some of that direct one-on-one immediate response feedback to help out the teacher in the classroom. So yes, we're eager to embrace innovations that will help us be world-class and future-focused, but definitely wanting to do it in a way that's safe.
Thank you so much. This was very interesting and informative. Okay, so we'll finish up the meeting with some executive board updates. Okay, so our budget update, my treasurer's here, that's why. We have a few small changes. So we had some more income from grants, and then in terms of expenses, we had our Zoom subscription renew, and then email is now monthly, so we also had email come out. Okay, so upcoming events next month in this room at 9 o'clock on May 17th, we'll have school celebrations. All of you school reps, you'll be getting an email in the next few days from me asking for help for you guys to talk to your principals and give us pictures. And if you're comfortable making a slide, make a slide. Otherwise, you can send pictures to me and I will make a slide for your school. But you have to also, if you don't want to talk, you have to send me what's going on. Otherwise, I just say, look at these pictures. Anyway, it's a really fun meeting. This will be our third year doing it. We go through every school. Each school has 1 to 2 slides, and it's really fun. I've attended all of them, and yeah, it's one of my favorite meetings of the year. Okay, so Oh, wait, I had one more thing I wanted to say for the executive committee part. So we're in the middle of our elections, and I just wanted to give a shout out to the elections committee, who is led by Samantha Oliver, who's been leading it, and just thank them a lot for all the work that they're doing. Okay, so on to committee updates. We have 4 committees, and only 2 of them have updates this month. So if there's not a slide for the committee, then they did not have an update for this month. We're an all-volunteer organization, and sometimes months go by where the committees don't do anything. So I just wanted to get that on the record, that's why there's not an update every month. Okay, so Special Education Committee, they have an event here next week at 6 o'clock, and it's on the transitions from the changes that the kids will experience and helping parents know what to expect when you go from elementary to middle school or from middle school to high school. And then they also have an end-of-year celebration that they're going to have here in the same room as well. And theirs is on May 9th in the evening. And the EDI committee wanted me to let you all know that they are looking for ideas for projects for next year. So if you have any ideas, you can send them through me and I can send them to the chairs. And then if anyone is interested in joining also, shoot me an email. You can, or if you're interested in any committee, president@scottsdaleparentcouncil.org, and I will connect you where you need to go. Any questions or any announcements from reps?
One question was the slides we need to build for the celebration. How do they go?
Oh, so I have the slides from last year. So the email that you get, when I email you for the school celebrations, I'll send you a link to last year's slideshow. So you can look at those slides, and if you like the formatting, we can just swap out pictures and stuff. And then, so I can, and then I'll either send you slides if that's what you tell me you're comfortable doing, kind of editing your own Google Slides, or you can make them your own, and then I can import them into the slideshow. So really what you're comfortable with. If you want to make it, send them to me, fine. If you want my help making it, fine. If you just want to email me pictures, we'll get there one way or the other. Okay, any other reps or questions? Or any other rep announcements or questions? No? Okay. Well, thank you so much. So you'll be getting emails from me soon, and we'll see each other here next month.